You were there 10 years ago, start of a new commission. I just would like to understand at this stage, what would you say is the biggest challenge for the EU?
Hello, everybody, and good morning, and thank you for that. I mean, it's always very exciting the moment that a new commission takes place. Of course, this commission has challenges, huge challenges ahead. I would say geopolitical challenges with the war, but also growth and productivity challenges. And I think that the Draghi report was very important for that, and that Ursula von der Leyen has put on the mission letters of each commissioner all the Draghi report. And so the Draghi report is about how can you get back to growth? How can you stop this slow agony, as he calls it, for the European economy? And I think that is extremely important because Draghi is a visionary. And so he has put that forward, that idea of innovation and science and technology as the only way to create future jobs. And at the same time, if you look at all the mission letters for the commissioners, they will have to reduce by 25% the red tape and the bureaucracy in the EU, which is very important for the future. I think that all the European Union has been designed in a bureaucracy, and that bureaucracy has to reduce itself. And I think that's very important. So I'm very excited. I think there's times that are difficult, of course, but I think that President von der Leyen, she has a vision. She knows where she goes, and she really wants to change that to have a more growth and productivity-focused Europe.
Well, we shall find out over the next 5 years, but I would like to dig deeper on what you just highlighted there in terms of the Draghi report, because one of the aspects that he raised was the need to invest more, to spend more. But what the most hawkish members of the EU would say is that there's enough money when you think about the EU budget and thinking about the COVID funds. Is the problem here the fiscal position for European countries to do more, or is actually the bureaucracy? Because you yourself have highlighted that you've struggled to actually get hold of these COVID funds.
I think there was a major step. I mean, Europe always advances in crisis. And there was a major step with COVID that all the countries agreed on really getting a mutualization of debt and get those 750 billion. So the door opened for that. And I think that the big countries or the net contributors, some of them are big, some also not that big. I don't think there's any big country in Europe today. We are all small countries, that they realize that without being together, without really investing together, we cannot go to the next level. Give you an example. I think one of the biggest challenges is defense. And I remember President Juncker talking at the time that we needed to have a European defense. The fragmentation of the defense investments that we have, where each country has a company and we don't have the scale. So I think there's like a procurement that has to be done at a central level in Europe to create the scale for big companies to thrive. And so I think that the countries that actually are the net contributors, they have to understand that they are net contributors because they have a big market of almost 500 million people. And so they have all interest on that. Of course, you have Germany and France that are in trouble. And when you have Germany and France that are in trouble, we are all in trouble. But that does not mean that we should not invest in our future, especially in technology, defense, and innovation and science.
I'm sorry for interrupting, but the question is whether the EU can actually deliver this, because, you know, everyone seems to understand what is the diagnosis, what are the problems ultimately, but can the EU deliver when you have a snap election about to take place in Berlin, you have this political uncertainty in Paris, you have the Prime Minister of Hungary making deals and making comments around Russia, around China? Can the EU deliver?
The EU can always deliver, and the EU always delivered. If you think about what the EU was before the crisis, the banking crisis, we didn't have a single resolution mechanism. Now we have. We didn't have supervision at the level of the European Union. Before COVID, there was absolutely, I mean, the health commissioner had no power. Now we have a union that is taking a look at what can we do in terms of health and science together. And so I think that we always advance. But of course, when you have 27 countries with 27 different cultures, of course, I mean, everybody is different and everybody wants their own interests. And the only way to have a common interest is the European Union. Look at science. Today, we have the best. We have 2 million scientists in Europe. When you look at science and fundamental science, we are the best compared to other parts of the world. Yes, the US is based on innovation of digital and they are far ahead.
The question...
China is based on efficiency and somehow engineering, but the fundamental science for computing, and I'm talking about quantum computing or talking about AI, the fundamental science comes from Europe, and that's our biggest strength. And so we have the ability to do it if we are united, but that's a decision of the countries.
Of course, and whether you can actually do it on time, isn't it? Because the race, the global race doesn't really stop. Before we let you go, I just would like to also get your thoughts on how Antonio Costa, the new president of the European Council, can actually deal with the upcoming, with the president-elect in the United States, Donald Trump. You know Antonio Costa is also a counterpart. What do you think could be his advantages and disadvantages here in trying to persuade Donald Trump to not impose tariffs on the EU?
You know, I remember very well the story when I was in the Commission and that President Juncker went to the US, to President Trump, to discuss exactly tariffs on cars. And he basically traded with President Trump, saying that we would buy more soybeans and liquefied natural gas, LNG. And President Trump accepted that. So President Trump is a pragmatic. And I think that President Costa is also pragmatic. And so if they are two pragmatics, and we have to deal with the US, and I think that in Europe, the discussions, if people like or not President Trump, they are irrelevant. We have to deal with the US. And the way to deal with President Trump is in the way that President Juncker at the time did it, which is in a pragmatic way, trading. Like, what do you give me? What can I get you? And then look at the interests of Europe. And at time in 2018, President Juncker avoided the tariffs on cars by actually promising to buy more soybean and liquefied natural gas. So, you know, it's like an anecdote. It's like a little story, but represents the way that President Trump reacts. He reacts to very direct and very simple negotiation skills. And so I hope that President Costa and President Ursula von der Leyen will be up to that in being pragmatic and defending Europe. I think if America first and China also first, I think we have to be also first. We have to defend our interests and we have to be pragmatic about it.